Well, hello and welcome to the Bottom Line Me podcast, where we like to spend some time discussing issues, ideas, and challenges in the title and real estate industry. I'm Allard, and today we're going to change things up a little bit and dive into the concepts of Liz Wiseman's New York Times best-selling book, The Impact Player: How to Take the Lead, Play Bigger, and Multiply Your Impact. Joining me today is my colleague from Agency University, Joe Alvis, and Joe is a very enthusiastic advocate for creating positive cultures in the workplace, and from what I hear from him, he's a huge fan of this book. Joe, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ann. And yeah, you're right. I love positive corporate culture, and I got a big kick out of this book.
Great. Well, as we just mentioned, the book is on one of your favorite lists. I personally haven't had an opportunity yet to read it, but I will say that I have done a little Googling, and I learned that I learned a little bit about the book. It categorizes team members, interestingly, as either impactors or contributors. So I thought that would be a great place to start. Can you tell us what an impactor is and what a contributor is?
Fair enough. So I want to be clear. In every organization and every company on every team, you would certainly hope that everybody is contributing to production, to growth, to positive culture. What the book does is, Liz Wiseman, the author, did a fabulous job of researching large companies, small companies, big CEOs, everybody, to find who they decided were the real players that just went above and beyond, who really made an impact. And so to define the two, a contributor, a good contributor, a great contributor is somebody who does their job, does it well, can be relied upon. I mean, is generally considered a good or great employee. Impactors are just the ones that give you that 1% more, that go just a little above and beyond, who stand out and noticeably make a difference on their team, to their company, to their managers and supervisors.
Well, it sounds to me like both impactors and contributors are both vitally important to a company's success and to their culture. But I get the sense that there are differences in how they contribute or how they impact the company's business and their overall success. So I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how that could apply in our industry, maybe some examples on how it might look at a title agent's office or even in a lender's office, or perhaps even an underwriter environment.
Okay. So certainly the way it really is defined, it's the ways that impact players perceive the job, the way they communicate about the job, the way they think about the job. I mean, so the basic categorization is a contributor will do their job. There is their role. Their role is defined. They have their lane, so to speak, and they're going to stay in it and do it well. Whereas an impactor will see things that need to be fixed, see ways of doing things a little bit better, communicate more effectively, or just think about, what could I do to make this a little better, a little more thorough, a little more surprised, kind of like to tie it into wow customer service. They look for those wow opportunities. So in for example, all of those industries you mentioned, there's a great example from the book that talks about the copy machine. Anyone here ever have a copy machine that's broken down? I know I have. Everyone's been in an office where the copier's on fritz, but there happens to be another one down the hall. So a contributor will understand they have to get their job done. They need to get it done now as quickly as they can. So when they go to the first copy machine, realize it's on fritz, and they're going to take their project, run down to the next hall, get the job done, keep the train rolling. They're doing what they should be doing, of course.
Right.
But an impact player will stop for 5, maybe 10 minutes and go, okay, I need to get this fixed, because not only is it going to make my job easier down the road, but it's going to make everybody's job easier. Instead of having to walk 25, 50 yards down to the other side of the building or down the hall to get it fixed, they could come here and get it done. So I'm just going to make the phone call to this mechanic whose number is right here on the machine and get them in here to get it fixed. And then I'll go down the hall and do my job. Cool. So one of the first things she talks about is they're what you would call a fixer. They see things that need to be done and they don't play to the workaround. They just handle the problem, get it fixed, not only for themselves, but for everybody on the team.
Very interesting. It sounds to me like an impactor is also a contributor, but a contributor might not be an impactor. Is that pretty much sum it up?
Very well said. Very, very well said. An impactor certainly not only does their job, but they look at ways to make it better, to, again, contribute to the benefit of everybody. A contributor is going to do their job. They're going to do it well, but they're worried about what their responsibility is. Whereas an impactor kind of goes, I can fix this for everybody. I can make this better for the whole team. That's what I'm going to do.
I got it. So let's take a couple of minutes and talk, because I know you've talked about this book a lot when you and I have had an opportunity to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. I just wondered if you talk a little bit about what kind of an impact this book had on you personally. How has it affected the way you impact or contribute to the team that you're on?
Well, I mean, it certainly gives you perspective. There's a lot of habits that we all have at work. There's certain skills we've developed. But what I love about books like Liz Wiseman's book, the definition of the way you think, the way you act, giving titles to actions that you have, using terminology to finally name and label something always helps. So one of the ways that it's helped me when it comes to feedback, impact players thrive on feedback. They will work on a project, take it to their mentor, their supervisor, and go, hey, here's where I'm at. What do you think? And the beauty of being an impact player is that you don't take things personally. You expect critiques, you expect feedback. It's not always positive. It goes, Joe, this is really good, but God, you really could sharpen A, B, and C. You might want to consider changing this section. You might want to add this or subtract that. And an impact player says, oh, okay, great. I'll go do that. No problem. I thank you for your input. Whereas sometimes and I used to be guilty of this, sometimes you take it personally. You go, oh, you don't like my work. It's a slight towards what I've created. Whereas now I look at it as, oh, wow, that's really good feedback. I didn't think of that. I didn't see that. Now I'll go and I'll make that better based on your input, and I'll bring back something better.
I love it. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Thanks. What about concepts? Were there any key concepts or ideas from the book that stood out the most to you?
I mean, certainly the one about feedback, about doing that, but there were so many other concepts in there. The best one, getting back to culture, there are 5 concepts in Liz books. In Liz Wiseman's book, and number 5 is make work light. Make work light.
Okay. I'm all ears. I'm all ears on this one.
What I love about make work light is, when we talk about culture and we talk about company design, so often we focus on the toxic person on the team and the company, that where it's like, oh my gosh, he's here again. Today is going to be rough. This person, there's a negative to it. But impact players are the ones who make work light. They're the person that walks into the office, walks into the room, and everybody goes, oh, great. They're here. It's going to be a better day. They're on the project. We're going to get this done. It's going to be great. And so there's something to be said about impact players who see teammates who need help. They jump in, no questions asked. They roll up their sleeves. They're here to help. They see people struggling, either, emotionally or overwhelmed with work. And they're the ones who ask, how can I help? What can I do? How can I make this better? They are the players on the team who want to make it better for everybody, who want to help get things done. They make work a game. They tie into that, gamification, as our good friend Denise McBride likes to call it. Sometimes you can take a project, make a game out of it, and see how quickly we can get this done, get it done well, and kind of play into that sense of competition that many of us have to work through a tedious project. And that's a key thing for impact players is they make work fun, they make work light. They're the people you smile when they walk in the door knowing that, okay, they're here today is going to be a good day.
Interesting. I think you mentioned in one of our conversations that one of the big takeaways in the book is about mindset. So can you talk a little bit about that? How does she unpack that?
I mean, we've heard the term growth mindset many, many times from many different sources. And that is a big thing. That is a major cornerstone to being an impact player is that you want to learn. You ask the questions, you get the answers, you get the feedback. You're always trying to see the bigger picture. And that's one of the components of being an impact player that Liz Wiseman talks about is you certainly have your role. You were hired to do a job. You have a job description, your role. But what is the bigger company picture? What is the big team goals? What is the company goals? How do you align what you're doing with that? How do you see the bigger picture and know that, well, this is my role, but if I align what I'm doing with what our company goals are, what our team goals are, I think that can better align the whole project of the product of what I'm going to deliver aligns better with the company. And in that vein, we one of the times we were talking about it, one of the things that they like to do is make the job easier for the next person. So much in our industry, a file comes through and it lands on many desks, as we like to say. That file is going to touch many, many people. Well, a contributor will do their job. They'll get done what they need to get done. They'll call in the demands. They'll make the connections. They'll fill the file. They'll do the research and then hand it off to the next person.
Right.
They did their job. That's totally fine. But an impact player will go, if I do one more thing here, if I tie this up better, maybe I'll even, when I have a moment, go ask the next person on the assembly line, for lack of a better word, hey, would it be better for you if I did XYZ on the file, or I was able to make it really easy transition, a quick handoff? Would that make it better? And you'll find that 9 times out of 10, yes, the people down the line from you are like, oh yeah, that would make it so much better for me if it came prepared this way or that way. And in our industry, I've seen that many, many times where asking a question, getting others' feedback and opinion of what could I do to make this better, constantly growing, is the philosophy of this whole book. Is how do you always try and be 1% better?
Interesting. Yeah, because I think, when I think back to my days of closing work, we all have our own style and our own preferred way of packaging up a file. And geez, it's interesting because I never would have thought about how could I make it better for the next person in the, as you say, the assembly line. I'm doing it to make sure that I've dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's and not really thinking about what's coming next. That's interesting.
It's there is something to that, and I think that plays into customer service is not only in external but internal. So there was a team I used to work on. We were responsible for hyperlinking the title reports. They come digitally and they have. So I was back in my early days in the industry. I was on a team hyperlinking the reports. Very tedious job, but we made it fun.
Sounds like a load of fun, Joe.
Oh, it was a good time. But our manager of that department was an impact player. And what she did was she would ask the processors, the closers that said, we're going to get this for you to give to your clients. How would they like that? Would they like certain things hyperlinked? Would they like it a certain package? Do you want it? What time is the best time of day to deliver these to you? I mean, just these little questions that she would ask, the next person who's going to get this package, and the praise that she would get, our department would get of, wow, how we're making them look good, because by the time they got the package, it was perfect. It was exactly what everybody wanted. And then to me, that's a great example from our industry of thinking ahead, thinking down the line. Don't just think of what's on your plate. Think of what's happening in the whole.
Great examples. So I'm curious to know, did you find any aspects of this book challenging to maybe your existing beliefs, or
Hmm.
did it give you any new perspective on anything?
I was challenged by the concept of moving targets. Of So the idea of moving targets is that a lot of times, goals change. And I think we've all seen that. You start a project and there's one demand for it to be this way. And then you get working on it, and then somebody sees, an update of where we're at, and they go, I think we want to shift. I think we want to go this way with this project now, or I want to go that way. And all of a sudden, it's what Liz Wiseman calls a moving target. That, okay, our demand has changed, our goal has changed, our completion has changed, and that has always been something for me that was a challenge, because I think of my personality type. I'm a bit of an eagle, and when I set my sights on doing something a certain way, I like to do it that way. And when things
Right.
pivot, you have to go, okay, all right, let's refocus. Let's go back to the growth mindset. Let's ask the questions. Let's ask new questions. What are we thinking? Why are we thinking that we want to change that, and pivot in this new direction? And okay, let's be nimble, let's be flexible, and let's do that. And for me, that was probably the more challenging out of all the other aspects that Liz talks about, is to go moving targets. How do we shift when the project changes, when the demand changes, when now we're going in a different direction, when we've been working so hard to complete what we originally set out to do? And to me personally, yeah, that was more of the challenging aspects to understand that process.
Another thing that I'm curious about is I can almost visualize, the story you told about the copy machine, for example. You can almost see how the dynamics work when you're in the office. So how does somebody become an impact player when so many of us are working remotely today? Is it
Oh, my.
possible? And, just wonder what you thought about that.
Well, I mean, I think, let's remove the copy machine and make it like a Teams chat channel, or we all use an instant messenger format. We use Teams in our department. There's many other out there. There's Slack. There's all these other. Okay, well, what if there's something in there that somebody's not using that channel right, or there's some glitch going on in there? What would it take for us to make it a ticket, reach out to the helpline, say, hey, something's going on here, or have a private conversation with a teammate that says, it works better if you do it this way, ABC. It would be easier on the team. I'm not calling you out in front of everybody. We're having a one-on-one. I'm just letting you know that it would be easier for all of us if you did it this way. So I think it still comes down to the way you look at your job, the way you communicate about your job, and the way you think about the collective, about the big picture. And
Yeah.
even working remote, I mean, there's still projects that we have to all contribute on. Let's ask the questions, let's learn, and let's grow. I think it's still universal. Just because we're not at the copy machine
Yeah.
or refilling the water bottle in the kitchen that everyone walks around. That
Right.
was always my favorite at some of the big offices I used to work in. We can still have an impact by being the person that wants it to be better for everybody, that
Right.
wants to grow, that wants to make it work, wants to make work light.
Excellent. All right. Well, before I let you go, I just had one other question. What about leadership and teamwork? Did the book have any influence or change your perspective on these rules? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's funny you say leadership. One of the big sections on here is what she calls step up and step back. So when you see something that needs to be done that is not being done along the lines of the copy machine, but maybe larger, there's a larger project that nobody is stepping up to take the lead on, an impact player will go, all right, you know what? I'm gonna take point here. I'm gonna assemble the troops. I'm gonna figure out the strategy and what we're gonna do. And then once I get the ball rolling and I find the right people to do the jobs that I'm not so great at, but
Right.
I know, like, for example, Ann, you're great at this. I'm going to get the ball rolling. I'm going to bring you in, and I'm going to let you take over on this aspect of this project. That's exactly what she's talking about. Step up, but step back. True leadership is about leading by example, but also giving people the bandwidth and the confidence and encouragement to lead themselves. So I think that that's a great section of the book that talks about that. There is a whole section towards the back that talks about this specifically for leadership and how to grow leaders. And I mean, I think all of us, if leadership is or is not what your goal is, or what you're chasing in your career, there's some great aspects in this book that just, again, thinking about the big picture. How do we help each other? How do we lead by example? I mean, I can't see anybody, this book being detrimental to anybody who wants to be a leader or wants to grow and become, even just becoming a great contributor. This book can help you do more.
Great. I love that step up and step back. I got to write that one down. That's really great. Well, I think we're just about out of time here today, Joe. So you got to give us the bottom line on this book.
Go find it and read it. Great ideas, great examples. I mean, again, even if you're just trying to be 1% better every day, this book gives some great ideas, some great thought towards how you can do it, like actual examples of what we can all do every day on a team and work to just make a bigger impact.
Well, I think it's a great book club read for a team, even just based on what we're sharing here. Yeah.
I could agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Well, Joe, thanks again for spending some time with me. This was really interesting, and I am going to run out and get that book before the end of this day, because you've really piqued my curiosity on this one. And to our audience, thanks again for taking the time to join us. And as we always like to say at Agency University, we hope you continue to learn, grow, and prosper.